You are listening to the Dominance Academy podcast, the premier enclave for those who seek mastery in the arts of traditional relationship dynamics and the arcane knowledge of unlocking true leadership. We will explore the influence of desire, the mysteries behind polarity, the darker pathways of intimacy. And now your host, Mr. Justin.
Good evening. This is the Dominance Academy, and I'm your host, Mr. Justin. I'll be having a fine evening. Hope you had a productive day. I know I did. And today I was going through some YouTube stuff, and I came across some things around, guys wanting relationships and the things they want to get out of them, and just listening in on what's going on. And so I had some thoughts around that. Thank you guys for stopping through. King Soul of Power, I see you. Uncle Guns, good to see you too, man. And so I was thinking about this stuff, and it occurred to me that I don't think guys really want relationships. You hear that guys want relationships all the time. It's like one or the other. Okay, they're like, yeah, I want to just bang a bunch of women, or just have random sex, or they want to get in relationships. And I don't think either of them want to get in relationships. I think it really just comes down to sex, honestly. I think the real thing that's going on amongst guys is that they just want to get laid consistently. I think that's it. Because just let's look at the average trajectory of relationships, okay? Guy meets girl. They kind of vet each other for a little while. They start going out. They start having sex, spending more time with one another. And then they start dating. And now they're boyfriend and girlfriend. They're having more sex. They're doing more things. They're spending more time. And perhaps they start living together. Maybe they get married. And things just kind of like have this like la-ti-da fantasy sort of vision of what's going to happen. And what really happens is the woman typically loses interest in the guy. Like this is across the board. I read some statistics today that something around 76% of men who are married over the age of 40 have a dead bedroom. So if you're over like 40 to 50 years old, 76% of them have a dead bedroom. And dead, I would say it like be considering dead. I forget what the actual numbers are, but it's like twice a month. So you guys, if you're having sex twice a month and you're with somebody, you've got a dead bedroom. And I would say, even more than that would be considered dead in my book. But anyways, so, things just go downhill, and then the guy's wondering, like, what the hell is going on? And it's because he is preoccupied with sex. Honestly, I think if unless there's a real reason, maybe like having kids or something along those lines, building a legacy, which a lot of guys try to fool themselves into believing that that's what they actually want. They don't want that. They just want consistent sex with a woman. I think if they could just keep a woman on tap, live their lives, and just keep a woman on tap to have the occasional sex, to have some blowjobs, and maybe someone to enjoy a meal with every now and then, they would be completely satisfied. Because when you break down what really occurs in a relationship, I don't think guys really want that. I don't think guys really want the management that's involved and the amount of vigilance you have to have in a relationship. They like to actually be in one that's successful and growing, because it's a 7-day a week, practically 24-hour job on top of your job. on top of your kids, on top of your hobbies, on top of everything else. Like so you have all of these things, not on top of necessarily, but it's an added thing that you must manage, that you have to pay attention to, that you have to guide, that you have to track, either if you're actually tracking it in some sort of data form, if you're one of those nerds, or if you're just paying attention to it and keeping lots of mental notes. But it's certainly something you're going to have to pay attention to. You can't just go by the seat of your pants, which is typically what guys do. Okay, they put their best foot forward, they keep things going for a while, and they don't grow themselves. They don't do research into how to be, a better man, not to her, right? But a better man to yourself. How is it am I going to grow? What do I need to learn? What are the things that I'm falling short on within myself that I need to correct, that I need to, bad habits that I need to expunge? What are good habits that I need to bring on? Okay. How is my vision of myself changed and growing? How is that evolving? How is my leadership skills? How are the development of my children? How is the progress of my wife? And I don't think guys really want to be bridled with that kind of burden, right? I don't think they do. I think they just want to have consistent sex. I think that's all they're in for it. And this is why there's so many damn failed relationships, because guys fool themselves into thinking that this is something they actually want because the alternative is beyond their skill set, right? So what's the alternative? Well, there's two. Either you just basically become an incel, or a volcel, like you just voluntarily just say, you know what, I don't want to participate, right? Or you can't participate and you say, all right, I can't participate, and you just cash in your chips. Or you go the way of trying to just like bang women. But, unless you are very well put together, you've got some serious game, a nice mouthpiece, and you take care of yourself, this is going to get more and more difficult as you age, right? There's not very many 60, 70-year-old players out there who are doing very well, okay? Because your bodies start breaking down. You can't dance as well. You can't move as well. You can't fuck as well. You can't run as well. You're not as strong. You're not as sharp mentally. Like, this is just what happens. So eventually, the player must go to sleep. Everything must come to an end. So these guys, they're like, okay, well, I'm not a player, and I'm not an incel, right? I can date women. I occasionally have sex with women. So I want to get into a relationship. Yeah, that's the sensible thing. Then I can have this woman on tap. I can have this woman with me all the time, and I can grow. Yeah, I know. I'll grow a family. That's what I'll do. And largely, guys are completely unprepared. They have no idea how to run a family. They have no clue, because they're still just stuck in the realm of wanting sex. And that's okay, but that's not a great way to run a relationship. That the pleasure can't be your guiding light. Excuse me. Yeah, pleasure can't be your guiding light. This is a fool's errand. This is like building your house on sand. It's not going to work. But so many guys, man, you get caught up in that bullshit. And then you get caught up in the bullshit that gives you tools to make you think you're moving forward. So you're like, all right, things are kind of like petering off, so let's take a cruise vacation. Things are dwindling off. Let's take the family to Disneyland, even though you hate Disneyland, right? And a lot of these guys, they start compromising, right? So like I said, even though they hate Disneyland, they'll start being like, oh, well, it's so-and-so, your girl's best friend's birthday, and like she wants you to show up. And most guys will be like, okay, I'm going to show up. Do. I'll be there holding hands with my, holding my beer in front of my stomach like a fucking chode, right? There's very few men who are going to be like, no, I don't like your friend. I'm okay with your friend, but Her birthday is no concern of mine. Send her my well wishes, and that's it. If you want to go, go. But I'm not going. Or her aunt is in town and, wants to have lunch, and you can't stand her aunt. You're going to be doing shit like that. No, you guys aren't prepared for that shit. You're not prepared for all the little things. You just want that sex. Just want that good old sex. So I don't think that dudes really want relationships. Like in my last video, not only that, you don't want relationships, but you're ill-equipped to run them. You're ill-equipped to run these relationships. That's why they get run into the ground. Or they never really take off, It's like they go down the runway, they got speed, right? Their front wheels just kind of pick it up a little bit. It's still touching down. It's like, oh my gosh, right? We're running out of runway. And then it never picks up. It never flies. And that shit just runs down the road like a car. And eventually runs out of runway, and then it fucking crashes. Because airplanes don't do so well on grass. Especially with 3 wheels. So that's usually what happens. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you guys want to blame women. You want to say it's because of these modern women. You want to say because and relationships have been failing since the beginning of time. Okay, since we were crawling out of caves, men have been having issues with women, right? Because we're just so simple. And it's funny because you're actually not. Men are not simple beings. We're incredibly complex if you make it so. But if you're just like, hey, keep my stomach fed and my balls drained, well, that's pretty damn easy. And guys, I can hear guys scoffing. Well, yeah, you think it'd be that easy? It's freaking hard out here. They don't want to cook, and I can't get any sex, so what's going on, And it's like, well, the fact of the matter that that's all you care about is what makes it so that you can't have it, right? When you have a higher criteria for things, and you're very well versed in what that criteria is, then things go a lot more smoothly. You can actually lead and guide things into meeting those potentials. That's why it's important to know your own mind. That's why it's important to know these things, I was just rereading the Musashi's Book of Five Rings. And this is it's a fantastic book. I'm all like inspired by Japanese shit. Actually from watching the Shogun. Man, that show is badass. Just everything about it. The acting, the costumes, the lighting, the camera work, the sets, it's just all fucking gorgeous. I love it. But I've got a long history of I wasn't a Japanophile, but I was just very much interested in Japanese culture, samurai, the whole martial arts thing, ninjutsu, all the religions and things like that. And so just seeing this really brought me back to my youth when I was obsessed with Japanese, ancient Japanese culture. Fuck the modern shit, but just the ancient Japanese culture, samurai culture, feudal Japan, just amazing shit. I mean, there was some really fucked up shit too, but there were some amazing things that came out of that. And just watching it brought me back, so I started rereading Minamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings, and there's so much wisdom in that. When people say the game is timeless, it is. And that's because wisdom is timeless. Wisdom about man is timeless. As much as there has been man, there has been wisdom from men for men. And this is the way. This is the absolute way. So with that, I'm going to put on some Japanese music that I found. What's up here? Yeah, And I think just men have lost so much of their edge. Like we've become, not we, but men in general have just really softened up. And maybe it's modern conveniences, maybe it's a whole slew of things. Maybe it's, plastics in the water driving down our testosterone, not being active. I saw this one meme, and I posted on my Instagram story about how, boys these days are not building sketchy jumps to ride their bikes off of anymore, and it shows. Well, like in my childhood, like this is something I did with my brothers, okay? We had our BMX bikes, okay? We were really into BMX bikes, and I lived, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile away from the Susquehanna River. And my brothers and I went down there with our bikes and some shovels and rakes and things like that. And we carved out a bike track, like for our BMX bikes. And it was all winding around and little hills and berms and jumps and things like that. And we would go down there and just tear it up like all afternoon, just riding our bikes, in the woods in the track that we made by the river. And someone had the brilliant idea to make a wall of fire. Uh-oh. Looks like my video froze. What's going on here? Did my video freeze? Oh shit. What the fuck is going on here? All right, we're back. That was strange. I don't know what the hell happened there. But yeah, so I was telling a story about building the damn bike track down by the river, and someone had the brilliant idea of creating a wall of fire. And we brought some gasoline down and some sticks and shit, and it was at the top of a jump. And we built this like 5-foot wall of fire, and we were riding and launching our bikes through that. My brother ended up catching his hair on fire, and we had to, toss him in the river to put it out. But yeah, that's the shit that we did. We got into some crazy shit. Like kids aren't doing that thing these days. They're like making like TikToks and shit. Like this is bad news. There's no rites of passage. Think about it. What challenges do young men have that prove themselves? That test their mettle? What happens these days? To make your balls drop, What do you do? I have no idea. I have no idea what these kids do. So it's just beyond me. And it's so, that meme was very powerful, that, kids aren't making sketchy jumps to launch their bicycles off of, and it shows. They're soft. They're edgeless, and what makes them even more wild is that they're highly emotionally volatile, which makes them seem like they've got edge, but that's actually even more dull. That's a dull edge with chips in it. A chipped edge. You ever see a blade like that where there's chips taken out of the edge? Like it's not going to cut. It's just going to rip. You know what I mean? It's not going to cut clean. So it's like, this is what guys have turned into. You know, this is what guys have turned into. They turned into these dudes with no edge, a rippled edge that can tear, but not cut cleanly. You know, and you wonder like what the hell's going on here, like New York City, where these guys who are, you know, just punching women out of nowhere. Like, what the fuck is up with that? What is happening to men? What the fuck is wrong with you guys? There's no integrity. You don't stand up straight. You have no balls. They're like inverted. And not only that, it's prized to not have balls. It's like, dude, you're ruining your life. You're absolutely ruining your life. With no spine and no balls, you are basically walking dead. And like, yeah, but I've got, 20,000 followers on YouTube. Who gives a shit if you can't look at yourself in the mirror and see a man? It doesn't matter. Clout is not what makes men. Understand this. It's great to have money, but money does not make men. Being fit is great. Being fit does not make men. Having women is great. Having women does not make men. Having a spine and balls and making yourself an edge is what makes men. You have to think differently. You have to act differently. I was doing some research, so I was being inspired by Miyamoto Musashi and the Book of Five Rings. And there's this quote in there. And he says, this Fudo Myoo, whose name means the immovable wisdom king, is represented with a sword to cut through our ignorance and a rope to bind up our emotions. So the Fudo Myoo it was originally a deity, a lesser deity that originated in Hinduism and Tibetan Buddhism, but they never really regarded it as much. And same within Chinese Buddhism, but for some reason it really took off in Japanese versions of Buddhism. So I'll share with you a picture of the Fudo. Let's see here. And maybe you've seen this before. Is it that one? Yes, it's this one. All right. So this is a sculpture of the Fudo. Fudo Myoo. Fudo Myoo. And this is it's a central deity in all Myoho groupings. And he's positioned, in the center. And he's a personification of the Dainichi Nyorai. And he's this like esoteric being, right? And the Fudo seeks to frighten people into accepting the teachings of the Dainichi Buddhism. And it's more of this righteous beast, okay? And so he, in one hand, he holds this devil subduing sword, right? Which is representing the wisdom cutting through ignorance, okay? And this is the hard, okay? And then in his other hand, he's holding rope, and this is the soft, okay? And this is the rope is designed to catch and bind up demons, or otherwise known as your emotions, okay? So this is the sword is the wisdom, and then the rope is that which catches your emotions, which which is represented as a demon, right? So the demon is the thing that causes chaos. It causes you to see the world blindly. It causes you to see yourself blindly. All right. This is what emotions do. And this deity, he's also known as Akala, right? In Sanskrit, right? Which means immovable, or the Ankalanta, which is the immovable Lord. All right. So when Miyamoto Musashi, he mentions this Fudo Myoo, whose name means the immovable wisdom king, is represented with a sword to cut through our ignorance and a rope to bind up our emotions. This is what should be living inside you. This is what should be living inside your being. All right? This is the thing that keeps you sharp. I mean, look at this. Look at this being, right? I'll show it again. This deity here. I mean, he's fierce. All right? This is the fierceness that should be living inside you, that is ready to cut and to bind. And I talk a lot about in the academy about having a mountain mind. The mountain mind is immovable. This is the immovable wisdom that Miyamoto Musashi is talking about. Because when you are able to be moved by your emotions, let's say you don't have this rope here. You don't have this rope that can bind your emotions. I was explaining this to my son earlier today. And he witnessed something with me earlier, and he was asking questions, and I was just telling him about how if someone can move your emotions, they immediately have control over you. They have won without even lifting a finger. They have defeated you. And once you have seen yourself defeated in this way, it's particularly soul-crushing because your ego takes a huge hit. It takes a huge hit. So you got to understand that having control, binding up your emotions with that rope is the way. It is the way forward. And is that sword that cuts through your ego so that you can reach wisdom. This is the only way to the path of yourself. And I'm not trying to like talk some bullshit here, but this is stuff that has been part of wisdom forever. Like they've known this stuff for a long freaking time. Men are not to be triggered by your feelings. This will lead to your destruction. And to think, going back to the title of the video, oh my gosh, I really want a relationship. Okay? When most guys are with the right kind of words in the right sort of situation, they're so ready to cry. They're so aching for a hug. They want to be patted on the back and told that everything's going to be okay. This is what men have become. They do not have this Fudo Myoo living inside them. They have a little panda bear. They don't have this fierce deity that enacts on themselves, because this sword is what acts on yourself, right? And then, Musashi, he also said, once you know yourself, you know all men. You know each and every one of them. And I see this in my own work, because a lot of the things that I teach about with my students, it's stuff that I've gone through. And I know exactly where they are. That's why it's progressive. That's why I can build on it, because I've been there. I've probably been in lower places. But that's how you understand things, is when you can see yourself very clearly. And that's how you can see others clearly. But if you're clouded by your preconceived judgments, if you're clouded by your ego, then you will never really be able to see yourself, and then you'll never be able to see other people. And then you will never actually be able to lead. And to think that you can lead a woman when you can barely do anything of your own. You cannot lead yourself. When if you really dig, you just kind of scratch a little bit of the surface of, pretty much every guy, right? Vast majority of guys. You just scratch that surface. Right underneath that thin veneer is self-doubt. There is not the conviction. Look at the face of this sculpture. Look at the conviction on his face. You look around, this face is not around. Not I'm saying you have to scowl at people, but I'm saying internally. There is not that strong conviction of self. Strong self-belief. No, there's strong belief that you will fail. There's strong self-doubt. There's strong self-questioning. A lot of I don't know and wishy-washy, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. No. You have to learn to think like a samurai. There's this idea that if my blade is unsheathed, it is drawing blood. And I don't mean this in a literal way. I mean this in a figurative way of having the mindset of there's a thought and there's an action. That's it. There's no second guessing. There's no what ifs. There's no considering all the variables and things like that. It's trusting yourself, trusting your thoughts, and trusting your movement. And there's no double stepping or anything like that. There's no stutter stepping. There's just straight conviction. This is how you come to yourself. This is how you lead. Right? But think of like your average guy, right? Your average guy who really wants that consistent pussy, He really wants that consistent pussy. And so he's really very flexible. Okay? Now, of course, there is some wisdom and truth in being flexible. Okay? Because it's important to be able to move and to flow, right? Because you can't really have answers for everything, every situation, and know exactly how all situations are going to play out. That's not possible, okay? Which means you can still be your steadfast self, but you need to be flexible. And so as far as like interacting with your woman, interacting with your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, I was explaining this to a student of mine who was a player of jiu-jitsu, okay? And if you've ever played jiu-jitsu, you know that if you get stuck on a particular outcome, well, not a particular outcome, but if you get stuck on trying to complete a certain technique, you will fail. You absolutely will fail. So if I'm rolling with someone and I am just dead set on trying to get this guy into an arm bar, I'm going to fail because he's going to see me constantly trying it, and then he's going to counter me, and then I'm going to tap out. Okay. So I explained to him, and he understands this, like, because he rolls a lot, right? A lot more than I have. And so I said to him, you just have the mindset of you're tapping out, right? You're thinking of your opponent and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get there. It's going to be a winding pathway, but the end is he's tapping out. And I said, that's the mentality that you have to have when it comes to all sorts of different layers and varied principles of the game. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to dance while also being able to kill at the end. And knowing that this is going to be the outcome. But at the same time, you can't be dependent on it. No, you can't be attached to it. Because if it doesn't happen, then you're going to be distraught. So you can't attach to anything. You have to constantly have an open palm, which is bizarre. But I tell you, and I've said this time and time again, you must treat everything with an open palm. And the open palm is actually what causes a lot more damage. You can do more with it. They like in Kung Fu, we teach a lot of open hands strikes. Okay. And what happens is kind of like bass. If you've ever been to like a loud show, okay, where they've got big subwoofers and they got the bass really going, you can feel it rumbling your organs. All right. And that's the way open hands techniques work. If you were to strike properly towards someone's torso, the force is dispersed and it goes through, much like a bass does, and it can cause organ damage without disrupting the surface. And people say, well, that's a bunch of bull and things of that nature, but I've seen it in practice, and there will be no surface damage, no surface bruising, but they're pissing blood, and that can only happen with internal damage, right? So the point is that when you have an open palm towards everything in life, you become more adaptable. But at the same time, your mind has to be this immovable force, like a mountain. So it's both. Just like in the statue, he has both. He's not just the sword or just the rope. He's hard and flexible at the same time. This is the path. This is the way of man. And this is the only way that you can actually be in your relationships. You have to be hard and soft. I got into this little back and forth. I do my best, but not good enough. I do my best in Instagram comments. All right. And there's this one guy, and what was this bullshit that he said? Something, I gotta look it up because it's just straight nonsense. Yeah, let me look this shit up. What the fuck did he say? He had this dumbass post. Oh yeah, he said, the best places to find your wife. And I don't know if he's being sarcastic or not, but he said the best places to find your wife: gyms, nightclubs, or maybe this is multiple choice: gyms, nightclubs, adventure trips, corporate offices, or social media. And perhaps he was being facetious. And I said, none of the above. I said they're not found. They're made by the man himself. And then I said, dudes out here got to stop looking for the easy mode, ready-made wives. They only exist in your fantasies. And this girl pops in, and she's like, no, leadership is not like that. I said, like, look, there's got to be structure. There's got to be some rules. There's got to be, rewards. There's got to be incentives. There's got to be punishment sometimes when necessary. And she comes in and she gives me her personal experience of, I guess, someone who only had the sword. And this can happen, right? And she's like, this isn't leadership. It's controlling. I've been there and I was miserable and all this stuff. And of course, it's like you when people are explaining their reality, you don't have to push back against it. Okay. This is what they've lived. All right. So I was just accepting that, okay, this is just the reality that she lived. She had a very poor experience with a man, and that sucks. Not all experiences with males are going to be positive. And especially if you're with, say, a controlling male. And that's what she said. She's like, it was very controlling. And that's what sounds like you're advocating for. And I'm advocating for control of yourself. This is what I advocate for. And then once you can control yourself, then you're able to better control your relationships. And she was like, they have to be, this egalitarian, partnership. And what was this sort of thing? Leadership is a common vision held between each other. How is that possible? Right? I saw this one guy, he's this black preacher, and he had this great breakdown. I can't remember where I saw it, but he was talking about the word division. And I was like, okay, division means to split. All right. And he says, look at the word division. Die means two, And vision means to see, right? So two visions causes division. In order to have unity, you must have one vision. All right? You cannot be driving down the road and you being in the driver's seat, or someone being in the driver's seat, and another person in the passenger seat, but they have their hands on the wheel too. It doesn't work. Okay? That's not the way of nature either. You look at the yin yang, there's always an interplay between positive and negative forces. This is the balance of the universe. There's always going to be dominance and submission in varying degrees. Always. We are always working within power dynamics all around us. You go into a forest, okay? Those big fucking trees have tons of leaves and stuff, they're dominating everything below. That's why directly underneath trees, there's not a lot of vegetation growing underneath them, because the trees are sucking up all the sunlight. They're dominating everything else. And then vines come in and they start wrapping around that tree, and they will kill it in search of the same sunlight. They will strangle that strong tree. They will dominate it, right? And then a fungus will come in and completely lay waste to all of them, right? So there's always an interplay of dominance and submission, okay? Everywhere. This is the balance of the universe. So you cannot actually ever truly be in an egalitarian type relationship. I don't think that it exists. And I commend anyone who's wanting to try. It's going to take, I'm sure it's possible, but my guess is that it would not be very exciting. I think it'd be super, super calm. And both parties would be like, well, let me consider this. What do you think? No, what do you think? What do you think? And it would probably take 100 years just to get anything done. To make sure that no toes are being stepped on, that everyone's thoughts and feelings are considered, and that, yes, you can probably live that way. But man, is it going to be so void of any kind of spark. Okay? Because it's that tension of the opposing forces of yin and yang that cause us to even fucking exist. Okay? We are here right now because our atoms are in friction with all the other atoms. Right? We thrive off of friction. And when you have the right kind of friction between you and a woman, this is what keeps that spark going. Okay? And last I checked, women are not the best progenitors of that spark. Men are, though. We spark all kinds of shit. We spark fucking fires and try to launch our bicycles off of them, right? Now, there are some sparky women out there, but generally speaking, women are not these torch-wielding fire starters, okay? And sadly, most guys today aren't either. They lost their ability to want to set fire to shit. And of course, I'm not being literal, all right? But figuratively speaking, to just say, I want to create, I want to spark, I want to make things go. I want my own version of a bang. I want a big bang. Where is that? Where is your spirit for that? Right? That strong warrior spirit. Because it's the ones that don't have that are what this lady was talking about. That vie for control. Okay? Because the things that we grasp at most, the things that we grasp at most at life are the things that we either do not have or we're deathly afraid of losing. This is why we grasp. Out of fear, right? And so we try to control that which we fear so that we can feel better. So in this girl's experience, and I'm sorry to hear that that's what it was, her experience was with a man who was deathly afraid of losing her. So scared that he had to control her, which frightened her. It made her feel miserable. She wrote miserable in all caps. Okay. So it causes misery when you try to control. And what does controlling look like? Let me see what this girl's talking about. Okay. Baby's gonna wash her pussy and go to sleep. Yes. All right. Sorry about that. So yeah, it's when you are, wanting to control. And what is it? A guy who's ill-equipped to be in a relationship, what does that kind of control look like? Well, telling her she can't have social media, being afraid of social media, being afraid of other men, being afraid of her having, male acquaintances. Oh my gosh, she has male friends. Who gives a fuck? Why are you so scared? Oh, like I said in the beginning, because it'll ruin your access to pussy. And why does that hurt so much? Is it because that's your ticket to intimacy? Because sex is your ticket to feeling accepted, to feeling good about yourself? Like you can feel like you're a man because you get to stick your dick in a wet hole? Is that it? Makes you feel like a big man? Makes you feel whole, accepted, seen, right? Is that why you're scared of her talking to other beings with a dick? Why are you so weak? Why are you so weak? Why do you care so much? Right? Open palm. If she's there, she's there. If she's not, she's not. Right? And this fear will cause one to try to control so much. He'll want to know who she's talking to. She'll want to know what she's doing on social media. She'll want to know who's in her address book. If her ex contacted her, why she's got certain pictures online or whatever. What else is there? I don't even know what to pick out because I don't think this way. So I can't even think about the stupid fears that males have around women. Because it has really nothing to do with women. See, like when you hear OGs like Steve say, the game has nothing to do with women. Okay. The anti-game has nothing to do with women either. So what do I mean by that? The anti-game is all the bullshit, right? So you think it has something to do with her not wanting to be her to be promiscuous. Oh, I don't want her to cheat on me. I don't want her to, be with other guys or whatever. Okay, that has nothing to do with her either. That has everything to do with your own fears. That has to do with your insecurities. This has to do with you relying on your sense of self-calm and worth based around what other people are doing, what this other person is doing that you seem to have attached some sort of deep meaning to, some sort of deep emotional attachment to. Now, of course, I'm not saying don't care about your woman, okay? If she's earned that position of having your attention, your care, and your wisdom, then fine, okay? But why does that include fear as well? Look at this guy. Take another look at him. The Fudo Myoo. Does that look like someone who has fear about a woman? Do you think he gives a shit? No. But I guarantee he also has the fiercest love that you could possibly imagine. But there's no attachment to it either. There's no attachment because he's got that rope. It strangles the emotions from being able to take over your mind and your behaviors, your choices, your actions, all of that shit. So when you actually have control over those cravings and all that bullshit, all the anti-game, okay? That's when you can actually love. That's when you can actually move your sword, okay? Because think about it. Imagine a swordsman who's full of anger and rage. When he draws his blade, is he truly, cleanly, purely drawing his blade? No, he's not. The advanced warrior is calm of spirit, calm of mind, void of his emotions when he draws his blade. Because when he draws his blade, it's just for the sake of drawing his blade, because that's what needs to happen in that moment. Right? When your emotions are in this, it completely alters everything. It alters your perceptions. It alters your beliefs. It alters the way you think. It alters the way you move. It alters your choices. It changes what you think is your program. Think about that. How if your emotions can infiltrate everything like a virus, then whatever you think you've created as your program is likely something designed to protect those very same emotions. And you think you've got a program. You think you've got something figured out, but it's just a structure to keep you safe. Which means you're actually weak and scared. And women will find that out about you. And either they will drop you or they will take massive action against you. They will use you and you won't even know it. You won't even know it until it's too late. And then you'll get pissed off, you'll get even more hurt, and then you'll go way off the deep end and become MGTOW or black-pilled. And become one of these guys who are originally fighting for, certain rights, to have courts change laws, which I do think are quite antiquated. I think some of them could be updated, but still, to make this your life's mission now. Like, there's guys like this. They lost it. They do not have the spirit of this deity in them. Hell no. And the way the Japanese saw these, the way the Buddhists saw these, Buddhism is not an external religion. Okay, it's not really even a religion. It's more of a study of the self. It's more of a psychoscience sort of thing, right? And because once you get to Japan, the deities, they're just symbols. Okay, if you go all the way back to the origins of Hinduism and Tibetan Buddhism, yes, they did believe in these external deities that they would pray to sometimes or whatever. But as it moved across the East and went into China and Japan, it became more and more refined, and these deities became more or less symbols of archetypes that lived within us. And this is what it should be looked at. So this wasn't this deity here wasn't really seen as this being outside of us to worship, but rather an archetype that lives within all men to commune with, to become in touch with intimately, because he's there to cut through bullshit, namely your own. Cut through your own bullshit and wrap up your emotions and strangle them with that rope. This is how you can move. And like I said before, people are like, well, I don't want to do that to my emotions, You don't really need them all that much. And it's not required to love. It's like I've said many times before, when guys think they're loving, they're actually not loving. They're really not. They are not loving. They're enacting strange structures. They're enacting strange structures that are going to make them all emotive and make them think they're loving, but they're not loving. They're full of shit. That's what they are. It's not the real deal. So I found this grouping of some quotes from Musashi. And I tell you, the dude is fucking brilliant. So I'm going to read some of these. What he said. I don't know how long ago. Let's see. Miyamoto Musashi, he died in 1645. He was born in 1584. Okay, so he was alive, like, through the early to mid 1600s. Okay, 1600s. So he said that. All right, so. Criticisms you've heard on YouTube about looks, money, and status, about how that has nothing to do with the game, right? Here he goes. There's nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter. Everything is within. Everything exists. Seek nothing outside of yourself. He didn't say don't attain these things, but he said don't seek anything outside of yourself. This is game from the 1600s. Still saying that looks, money, and status are pure bullshit. A samurai from the 1600s got more game than practically every living man on the planet now. You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain. People think that I even use this term loosely, game, because it's not mine, but frankly, I don't know a better word for it, whatever it is, okay? But there's no prescription. There's no one way. It's only through learning of yourself will you understand the way as your own subjective experience. And this is the way. Provided it's leading you to fulfillment, right? Providing it's leading you to wisdom, understanding yourself, and therefore understanding the world. But there's no one path. That's why the academy, it's not prescriptive. I don't teach guys how to think like I do. I just help them think like themselves. Which is this long mystery that's been hidden from them for a long time. For a long time. Let's see what else we got here. Do nothing that is of no use. You damn video game junkies, TikTokers. What did he say about the sword? There was this one. Right. Okay, this is what I was talking about. Right here. The primary thing when you take a sword in your hand is your intention to cut the enemy, whatever the means. Whenever you parry, hit, spring, strike, or touch the enemy's cutting sword, you must cut the enemy in the same movement. Let me reread that. The primary thing when you take a sword in your hands is the intention to cut the enemy, whatever the means. Whenever you parry, hit, spring, strike, or touch the enemy's cutting sword, you must cut the enemy in the same movement. It is essential to attain this. If you think only of hitting, springing, striking, or touching the enemy, you will not be able to actually cut him. I hope you understand what that means. It means, partially, having that Fudo Myoo, having the willful intent to cut, being decisive, having conviction, and not stopping at the thing, but going through. For example, how does this relate to women? If you stop with her face, if you stop with her breasts and her nice waist and her round ass and the way her skin is soft and smells good and feels good between your teeth, like, if you stop there, that's just focusing on the striking, the parrying, the whatever, all the other shit that he was talking about, the springing, the striking, the touching the enemy. You'll not actually be able to cut. You have to go deeper. When you go beyond her looks, you go beyond her tits and her firm ass and her tiny waist and her pretty face. You go beyond those things, right? Now, it's fine. It's fine to have that. It's fine to be interested in that and to enjoy that. But you go beyond those things. It's helpful to know that you can, all right? Too many guys don't know that they can. But it's funny. The world has you believing that you are not effective. You are. It's part of your nature. It's the part of your nature as a man to be effective. It's in you. It's in your DNA. But it's been counteracted by so much brainwashing and conditioning that you are less than because of XYZ. And it's like these senses are so easily tapped into by masterminds of marketing and advertising. They know how to massage your subconscious into years and years of conditioned self-doubt so that you're just this pliable little mush of clay. But you're really not that. You really do have immense value beyond those five senses of what can be seen and heard. It's what can be felt. And this is how you touch into a woman's core. But if you're only looking at her surface, you're only dealing with her surface, and you're only looking and dealing with your own surface, is it any wonder that things just don't go anywhere? Or they only go so far? And then you're like, this isn't working out, moving on to the next. Maybe it's because you don't know what the hell you're doing. And the reason why you don't know what you're doing is because you don't know who's doing it. There's no sense of self. There's no understanding of why. This is how you move, by understanding why and who. Then you can do whatever the hell you want. And it makes sense because it's congruent from that which is doing it or whom is doing it. Does that make sense? This is the way. Like what do they say? It doesn't matter what you say. It's who is saying it or how you say it. Well, that's what it is, right? You hear this a lot in like PUA circles. It's not a matter of like what you say. It's how you say it. No, it's who is saying it. And idiots will think, well, this who isn't 6'3", this who isn't ripped, this who isn't wealthy, this who isn't well known, so this who is broken. No, it's broken because you're already thinking it's broken when it's not. You have a warped sense of self. That it's not your fault. You didn't do it on your own. You didn't wake up one day and start writing yourself a program of self-loathing. Okay? This has been brought to you. Think about it. Babies, they're not sitting there going, oh, woe is me. I'm a piece of shit. I can't crawl. Right? They don't. It's been brought to you. And you accepted it. You brought it into your consciousness, fused it to your being, and now it's part of your identity. And you didn't put it there. You just unfortunately allowed it to be there. and never woke up to the aspect of yourself that can peel it off, or met somebody that can peel it off for you or help you peel it off. But it's through these things that you're able to actually have influence and lead. You will smell it a mile away when you have doubt. And man, you like, guys will complain so much. They'll complain so much. And they don't understand. But if you talk to enough women, right, because in my work over the past 10 or so years, I've spoken to enough women who are in relationships, who are married. They're in just boring, dead, uneventful, no spark type relationships. And if you could only imagine your being isn't something that's super decisive. Imagine your being is very reactive. Like a flower, right? If you take like a flower, like a potted flower, and you put it in the windowsill and you turn its face away. So like if you have like a flower that has a big face, like a daffodil, all right? Or a daisy, right? Where it has like the big center thing and it's got the leaves kind of going all around in a circle. And if you turn it away from the sun, eventually that flower will actually turn itself towards the sun. Okay? Now imagine being a being like that. Okay? Like a woman. All right? And you're stuck with this dude. You're married, you've got kids, and he does nothing to turn your face toward the sun. All he cares about is going to work, wearing the same old clothes, asking what's for dinner, getting takeout, dropping his fat ass in front of the TV to watch some more Netflix, and just doesn't do anything that even remotely causes that flower to move towards his sunlight. Nothing. And imagine being this person where you need this. You need the sunlight. You need that stimuli in order to turn around, in order to move, in order to react, in order to do something. You need something. And you're just dropping and dropping and dropping in spirit. All the while you're looking at this person who used to be your guide, your light, your lighthouse, your beacon, the thing that sparked energy and life into you. And now that's just fading out. And now you've just got day-to-day rote, stressful bullshit. And now you're looking at this guy. He's boring. He's just this regular, he's like a loaf. All right. And every once in a while, he whines that you're not putting out enough. You're not sucking his dick enough. Guys are so stuck in their ego and their self-pity that they couldn't even imagine what it's like to be with someone like you. Or with someone like these guys. I don't mean to insult my chat. But like these guys. Okay? And of course you guys go, well, fuck them. I say this just not to be sympathetic towards women's experiences, like whatever. They're going to experience what they're going to experience. But my point is to have a broader view, a broader understanding, okay? Not just one side of the yin, not just one side of the yang, understanding the whole fucking circle with the little dots in the middle and seeing the whole thing holistically, okay? Because that's when you can understand how influence works. Okay? You need both sides of everything to understand fully how things work. All right? Like if you want to understand trading, you have to understand other parts of the market. You have to understand how world events are going to affect certain supply chains. Okay? If You want to understand hand-to-hand combat. You can't just be shadowboxing or use a heavy bag. You have to understand what it's like to have an opposing force. You got to know what it feels like to lose sometimes, to be tapped out. I mean, oh man. So that's what they go through. That sense of panic that I can't breathe or that my arm's about to snap. Yeah, it's important to know what that feels like. So you have a whole picture. So I say this to these guys that they're so stuck in their pride and their ego. Oh my gosh, my wife, she hasn't had sex with me in a month, and my gosh, I can't remember the last time I saw her titties, And it's like, dude, do you have any idea who she's married to? Do you realize what a loser you are? What a complaining, boring lump you are. And all you care about is getting your dick wet. When if you cared about things that were beyond pleasure, were beyond her looks, you'd get all that and then more. But you have no idea how to tap in because you never knew how to tap in, starting with yourself. You never knew any of that shit. Because men don't really want relationships. They just want something to satiate themselves. They just want a constant tap of drug. Right? Like a morphine drip. That's what they want. So I'll wrap this all the way around to the very beginning. They don't want any of this shit that we've been talking about. Most guys, when they say they want relationships, they don't want to lead for the sake of leading. They'll say, oh, I want to lead, but if there was, for whatever reason, they say, no pussy. They're like, I'm not going to lead. I don't want to do that. Right? It's like, it's like, those kids are like, when you're wanting them to eat their dinner, and it's like, oh, if you eat your dinner, you can get a cookie. And if you're like, well, there's no more cookies, they're like, well, I'm not eating dinner. Leading isn't about rewards. Leading is about creating. And if you don't have the spirit of creation, if you don't have the spirit of carving paths and making jumps and sometimes burning fires on the top of those jumps and going through them, you might not be cut out to lead. And when you're telling yourself you want a relationship, maybe you're just feeling a little bit bad about yourself. And you need that thing to feel better. So I think that's really the motivation behind a lot of guys. You just want to feel better. To do with what's going on around you. It's just your internal station. It's full of holes, or just one big fucking hole. And that's too dark and too deep to look at. So like, you know what? Maybe if I just like cover it up with a rug and then somehow trick a woman into hanging out there with me, we can both ignore it. Yeah, good luck. Good luck. Oh no, divorce court. Good luck. And they'll be so stupid and so stubborn and so in their emotions with no rope, no sword, that they'll blame everything outside of them. They will not look at that hole until many, many, many years later. When they no longer have anything to prove to the world, they're an old man, and maybe, if they're lucky, their ego will slide down and relax, and then they can see themselves, and they will be filled with so much sadness and embarrassment that they led their life the way they did, as it pertains to themselves, as they related to themselves. And they'll have a huge, come to self moment and say, my God, what the fuck did I do? And they'll be riddled with massive amounts of guilt. This is what happens to shit tons of men. Don't be that guy. Tend to that void. And don't go sticking it with a bunch of women in there. Because it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's a fun process while you're trying it, but it's not going to solve the problem. Because that's the thing with voids, that they're endless, right? So you think you can fill it up with women and you can't. It's not going to work. You can fuck 1,000 women and you're still going to be lonely. You can fuck 1,000 women and you're still going to doubt yourself. You can fuck 1,000 women and you're still going to think you're a loser. And you're going to try to convince yourself that you're not because you slept with 1,000 women. It's not going to change anything. Because out of that 1,000, how many are there really, really wanting to support you? Really wanting to get behind you? Not trying to use you. How many? Probably few to none. So get your shit together. It's not about your money. It's not about your health. Yes, you should have money. You should be able to take care of yourself. Yes, you should be in good health. No, nobody gives a shit if you're famous. Nobody. Nobody cares. In 100 years, everyone is going to be forgotten. I don't care how famous you are. Eventually, some as famous as Andrew Tate got, all right, he will disappear into time. Every single one of us will become completely forgotten. Your existence will go to zero. Not even stuck in the memories of people. Eventually, people will even forget about, super famous people from history. Like eventually, Alexander the Great, people like that, big rulers, all that shit, even like great Egyptian rulers, eventually everything will just fade into nothing. So don't spend your time worrying about becoming well known, because no one actually really gives a shit except you. But why would you give a shit about something like that? Who cares? Become well known internally. Wouldn't that be great? Become very well known to yourself. And fuck external clout. Gain that internal clout. Right? Because there's something fantastic that happens within you when you develop that internal clout, when you know who you are. And the funny thing is that a lot of things become clear. Just like Musashi was saying, when you know yourself, you know the world, you know other men. And you can clearly see the ones who are full of self-doubt. You can clearly see who is on the level and who isn't. And you know exactly who to fuck with and who not to fuck with. Who to give your time and energy to and who not to. Because you've dealt with it all within yourself already. So do yourself a favor. Pick up a copy of the Book of Five Rings. Read the passages a few times. It's a small book, but it's chock full of wisdom. And like I've just gone over just like a couple of brief quotes. Here's another one. All men are the same except for their belief in their own selves, regardless of what others may think of them. See, he was on the level. If you do not control the enemy will control you. That goes right back to Fudo Myoo with the rope, controlling the emotions. To know 10,000 things, know one well. Right? It's basically say to know 10,000 things, know yourself. This is ancient shit that just has not changed ever. All you got to do is just understand it from any context, and you'll see that what do they say? The game's not changed. There's nothing new under the sun. The game does not change. It's flexible, but it does not change. You may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor. So don't be a fucking moron out there. All right. I think I've filled your ears with enough this evening. Thank you guys all for coming through and joining me on the live. I appreciate you who have come through on the replay. Like always, if you want to get in touch with me, send me an email to justin@thedominanceacademy.com. Please go to the website, Dominance Academy. I've got a bunch of new products on there, some PDF ebook downloads about desire and attraction. There's a free e-reader. Excuse me. There's a free e-reader on there. So that way you can just download, just put 0 in the dollar amount and, download it. The email will be sent to you. And if you have any questions about coaching, there's some brief explanations on the website, or you can get in touch with me on Instagram at thedominance.academy, or you can email me and we can have a chat and go over anything you want, specializing in relationships, relationship dynamics, and creating polarizing situations where you don't lose that spark. Okay? You don't have that roommate dead bedroom situation that plagues a whopping 76% of men between the ages of 40 and 49. Guys, don't become that statistic. And don't be a fool in thinking that it's the woman's problem. You are the man. This is your problem. Shoulder it, and your shoulders will go broader. Okay? All right, guys. I truly appreciate everyone's participation. I appreciate you coming through. What allows me to keep going. And with that, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Peace.